The nightclub's lights still flashed in Emily's mind when the sound pierced her ears, sharp and wrong. A baby's cry echoed inside the hospital corridor, and Emily stumbled as if the floor tilted beneath her. The nurse whispered, "Emily Carter, the child is yours," and her blood ran cold. Emily said, "No, that's not true. I don't even want this." The air thickened, heavy with the scent of antiseptic, sweat, and disbelief. Strangers stared, but Emily's heart thudded too loud for her to hear their judgment. Daniel, standing at the courtroom door, turned pale when he heard the words, "DNA confirms the child belongs to you." Emily said, "This is madness. None of this is mine." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder, sealing a truth that shattered her world. The baby's cry returned, softer, closer, demanding something she could not give. Emily clutched her head, whispering, "It's not me. It can't be me." The nurse's hand trembled as she placed the infant nearby, and Emily's gaze locked on tiny fists curled against a blanket. In that instant, she felt the universe tilt again, crashing into her chest with unbearable weight. Emily sat in the hospital waiting room, her party heels clicking nervously against the tile. She said, "This isn't mine. I was just dancing hours ago." The fluorescent lights buzzed, too loud, too bright, as though mocking her. A stranger glanced over, whispering to another, and Emily felt her chest burn with shame. The nurse appeared again, holding a clipboard, her voice firm but quiet. "Emily Carter, the child's paperwork lists your name." Emily snapped, "I didn't sign anything." Daniel stood nearby, silent, his eyes narrowing. He muttered, "I don't understand. This can't be real." Emily's mind spun, recalling the blurred nights, the mistakes, the secrets she wished forgotten. The baby's cry cut through again, pulling her deeper into a nightmare she couldn't escape. The judge's voice rang like iron, declaring, "The test confirms paternity." Daniel's lips trembled, and he said, "I don't believe this." Emily whispered, "Neither do I." The courtroom murmured, strangers shifting in wooden pews, eyes drilling into her. Emily clenched the edge of her seat, her nails digging deep. She remembered nights of recklessness, laughter turned sour, and whispered lies she once ignored. The gavel slammed again, finalizing words she could not erase. Emily felt her lungs squeeze, the air refusing to fill. Daniel's stare met hers, full of unspoken blame, and she looked away, whispering, "I didn't ask for this." Emily walked into the sterile nursery, her heels tapping like thunder on tile. She froze when the bassinet appeared. The baby lay swaddled, tiny chest rising and falling. Emily whispered, "No, no, this isn't mine." The nurse approached, voice trembling. "Emily Carter, it's written here." Emily shook her head, saying, "I can't." Her hands hovered over the cradle, trembling as if touching the infant would set her soul aflame. Daniel entered behind her, silent, his shadow stretching long on the floor. He said, "If it's true, then what do we do?" Emily turned, tears streaking down her face, unable to answer. The baby stirred, eyelids fluttering. Emily's breath caught, and she whispered, "Why me?" The nurse said softly, "Because fate doesn't ask permission." Daniel leaned on the wall, shaking his head, muttering, "This ruins everything." Emily closed her eyes, the weight pressing down heavier. Her heart battled between denial and something unspoken. She reached out, almost touching the baby, then pulled back violently, crying out, "I can't do this!" The baby whimpered, fragile, unaware of the storm swirling around it. Emily said, "This isn't a choice, this is a trap." Yet even as she stepped away, her gaze refused to break. Emily sat alone in her apartment, the echoes of laughter from past parties still clinging to the walls. She said, "I was the girl everyone called when they wanted to forget themselves." Empty glasses on the counter glinted under the morning sun. Her phone buzzed with ignored messages, voices from a world she no longer belonged to. Daniel's words replayed in her head, "The child is yours." She whispered, "I don't even know how to be me, let alone a mother." She buried her face in her hands, memories of neon lights and broken mornings clawing at her. Emily walked to the mirror, staring at the hollow reflection that barely resembled the girl she thought she was. The baby's soft cry from the hospital haunted her like a ghost. She said, "Why does this child break me in ways nothing else could?" Tears streaked her face as she felt the truth unravel her defenses. The phone rang again, shrill and demanding, dragging Emily from her silence. She said, "What now?" The voice on the other end was Daniel, harsh and cold. "You can't run from this." Emily clenched her fist, pacing across the room. She said, "I didn't ask for this life." Daniel replied, "Neither did I. But the test doesn't lie." Her knees buckled as his words hit her deeper than she expected. She whispered, "I'm not ready. I'll never be ready." Her eyes darted to the window, where the city buzzed, uncaring, alive with a rhythm she no longer fit. Emily said, "Everyone will see me as a failure." Daniel's silence cut sharper than words, pressing her deeper into the abyss of shame. She pressed the phone against her chest, whispering to herself, "I don't want to carry this weight." Emily stood at her parents' doorstep, gripping the handle as though it could save her. She whispered, "Please, let them understand." Her mother opened the door, eyes narrowing. Mary Carter, stern voice sharp, said, "We heard everything, Emily." Her father appeared behind her, arms crossed, silence heavy with disappointment. Emily said, "I didn't choose this. I don't even know how it happened." Mary replied, "It doesn't matter. You carry the shame, and we carry the whispers." Emily's chest tightened, her breath coming fast. She said, "I need help, not judgment." Her father turned away, muttering, "You made your bed." Emily felt the ground shift beneath her, rejection burning like fire. Tears welled as she whispered, "I thought family was supposed to protect me." Emily sat on the edge of her childhood bed, walls still painted with faded posters from years ago. She said, "I'm drowning in everything I ran from." Her mother entered, stiff posture, arms folded. Mary said, "Do you expect us to raise that child for you?" Emily snapped, "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of it." Mary's eyes softened for a fleeting second, then hardened again. She said, "That doesn't change the truth." Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing, "I don't know who I am without the noise, the lights, the escape." Her mother turned away, whispering, "Then you'll have to learn." Emily felt the cold walls close in, the weight of rejection cutting deeper than ever. Emily walked along the quiet street at night, neon signs buzzing faintly in the distance. She whispered, "I thought the world would always have a place for me." A couple passed by, casting her a disapproving glance. She pulled her hoodie tighter, muttering, "They see me as broken." Daniel's voice haunted her thoughts. "You can't walk away from this." Emily said, "But I already lost myself long before this child." Streetlights flickered above, shadows stretching long across cracked pavement. She whispered, "I don't know how to fight for something when I've never fought for myself." A tear slipped free as the night swallowed her, leaving only the echo of her footsteps. Emily sat across from Daniel in a dim cafe, silence stretching between them like a battlefield. She said, "Everyone's whispering about me." Daniel stirred his coffee, refusing to meet her eyes. He muttered, "They're whispering about me too." Emily clenched her jaw, the weight of judgment pressing in from invisible walls. She said, "You could stand with me instead of against me." Daniel finally looked up, his face carved with bitterness. He said, "I never wanted this, Emily. I wanted freedom, not responsibility." Her chest tightened, fury boiling beneath her skin. She whispered, "So I'm supposed to drown alone?" The cafe buzzed around them, but the world shrank to their sharp words and jagged silences. Emily walked into her old friend Sarah's apartment, hoping for comfort. Sarah crossed her arms, voice sharp, "You've changed, Emily, and not in a good way." Emily said, "I needed someone, not another critic." Sarah shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. She said, "You burned bridges long before this baby came." Emily's heart cracked as she whispered, "I thought you were different." Sarah turned away, muttering, "I can't be dragged down by your chaos." Emily felt the walls of the room closing in, betrayal slicing deeper than the judgment of strangers. She stumbled backward, saying, "Even my friends see me as nothing but a failure." The baby cried from the hospital crib, its voice fragile yet powerful. Emily stood frozen at the doorway, whispering, "Why does it sound like it's calling me?" The nurse looked up, concern etched across her face. She said, "Emily Carter, this child needs you." Emily shook her head violently, muttering, "I can't even take care of myself." The baby's tiny hands reached upward, and Emily's breath caught. She whispered, "Why do I feel like I'm breaking apart?" The nurse said gently, "Because love and fear always arrive together." Emily pressed her back against the doorframe, tears falling freely, trapped between running away and stepping forward. Emily sat at a family dinner table, the air thick with unspoken words. Mary Carter's voice cut through like a knife. "You've brought shame to us." Robert Carter said nothing, but his silence screamed louder than words. Emily whispered, "I never asked for this burden." Mary slammed her hand on the table, snapping, "It doesn't matter what you asked for, Emily, it's reality." Daniel sat at the far end, arms folded, his gaze fixed on his plate. Emily's tears blurred the room as she said, "All of you see me as broken." Mary hissed, "Because you chose chaos." Emily whispered, "No, chaos chose me." The silence afterward was deafening, every heartbeat louder than thunder. Emily sat in the park alone, the night air biting her skin. She whispered, "Everywhere I turn, they push me out." The rustle of leaves answered like a cruel echo. She said, "I'm trapped between keeping a child I don't understand and losing what little is left of me." Daniel's words echoed again in her memory. "I never wanted this." Her mother's judgment still burned. "You carry the shame." Emily hugged herself tighter, whispering, "I'm suffocating." A passing stranger gave her a curious glance, then walked away. She said, "Even strangers see the ruin written all over me." Her tears fell into her lap as she whispered, "How much more can I endure before I break?" Emily sat across from Mary in the living room, silence suffocating the air. Mary's voice cracked, "There's something you were never supposed to know." Emily frowned, her heart pounding. She said, "What do you mean?" Mary avoided her gaze, clutching a folded paper in her trembling hands. She whispered, "The baby isn't yours." Emily's breath stopped as her mind clawed at the words. She said, "That's impossible. The test," Mary snapped. "The test told only part of the truth." Robert entered, his face pale, muttering, "We thought we were protecting you." Emily's tears blurred her vision as she shouted, "Protecting me from what?" Mary whispered, "The child belongs to your sister, not you." The words shattered Emily's reality, leaving her gasping. "All of you lied." Emily staggered backward, gripping the wall for balance. She said, "You lied to me for years." Mary's face hardened. "We lied to protect the family." Emily's voice rose, trembling. "Protect the family by destroying me?" Robert muttered, "It was your sister's child, and we couldn't let her life unravel." Emily's heart shattered as she whispered, "So you gave me the blame." Tears streaked down her face as the weight of betrayal consumed her. Mary whispered, "You were never supposed to know." Emily screamed, "But now I do, and nothing will ever be the same." Daniel stormed into the room, his voice harsh. "What the hell are you saying?" Emily turned toward him, trembling. She said, "They lied, Daniel. The baby isn't mine." Daniel froze, eyes narrowing in disbelief. He said, "Then whose is it?" Mary's voice cracked, "Your sister-in-law. It was hers all along." Daniel clenched his fists, rage boiling over. He shouted, "You dragged me into this nightmare for nothing?" Emily whispered, "We're both victims of their lies." Daniel slammed his hand on the table, muttering, "I've been destroyed by secrets that were never mine." Emily's tears flowed as she whispered, "Everything we've lost was built on their betrayal." Emily stood in her sister's abandoned bedroom, walls painted with memories of a girl who vanished. She whispered, "It was hers all along." She ran her hand over a cracked photograph of her sister smiling. Mary's voice echoed faintly behind her. "We did it for her reputation." Emily's fists clenched as she said, "You buried me alive for her mistakes." The silence of the room screamed louder than words. She whispered, "I carried the shame," while she walked free. Emily collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Emily confronted Mary and Robert once more, her voice sharp with fury. She said, "You turned me into a ghost in my own life." Mary's tears finally fell as she whispered, "We thought silence would save us." Robert muttered, "We didn't know it would break you." Emily's chest heaved, her voice trembling. "You broke everything. My trust, my name, my soul." Daniel stood beside her, finally aligned, whispering, "We can't undo this, but we can fight back." Emily's eyes burned with resolve as she whispered, "Then let's burn the lies down." The silence afterward carried the weight of a war about to begin. The courtroom was heavy with silence, every breath weighed down by unspoken truths. Emily stood trembling, her voice breaking. "You lied. You all lied." Mary's face twisted, whispering, "We had no choice." Emily screamed, "You had a choice, and you chose to bury me." The judge raised his hand for order, but the words had already ripped the room apart. Daniel rose suddenly, pointing at Mary and Robert, shouting, "They shattered lives to protect their lies." The gallery erupted, gasps echoing, whispers spreading like wildfire. Emily's tears blurred the figures before her, but her voice gained strength. She said, "I won't be your scapegoat anymore. Not now, not ever." The gavel slammed, but the truth had already burned into the air. Emily's voice echoed, trembling but unyielding. "You stripped me of my life to save someone else's reputation." Mary cried out, "We were trying to protect the family." Emily spat back, "Family doesn't destroy its own." Daniel slammed his palm on the table, shouting, "This entire lie has broken us all." Robert muttered, "We thought silence was strength." Emily turned toward him, her voice rising. "No, silence was a weapon, and you used it against me." The gallery fell silent, every eye locked on the storm unraveling before them. Emily whispered, "I may be broken, but I will never be silent again." The judge leaned forward, his voice deep. "This family has torn itself apart." Emily whispered, "Because lies always destroy." Daniel rose beside her, his voice steady. "We were robbed of truth, forced into shadows that weren't ours." Mary sobbed, "We thought we could control the damage." Emily snapped, "But you only created more." Robert's silence burned as Emily turned to face him, whispering, "Even now you won't speak the truth." The baby's cry pierced from the hallway, silencing the chamber. Emily closed her eyes, whispering, "That cry belongs to no one but innocence." And we buried it under our shame. Emily turned toward Mary and Robert, her voice raw with fury. "You made me carry shame that was never mine." Mary sobbed, "We thought we were sparing you." Emily shouted, "You destroyed me." Daniel placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Speak your truth." Emily's eyes blazed, her voice cutting through the silence. "I am done living under your lies. I am done bleeding for your secrets." Mary collapsed into her chair, whispering, "We didn't mean for this." Emily shook her head, whispering, "But you did it anyway." The silence was heavier than thunder, a storm that had already broken. The gavel slammed again, the sound final and unforgiving. Emily's voice trembled but rose above the noise. "I will not be erased." Daniel stepped forward, his voice sharp. "We choose the truth no matter the cost." Mary whispered through tears, "Please forgive us." Emily's eyes hardened, her voice shaking. "Forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned, and you never tried." Robert muttered, "We thought we were strong." Emily said, "Strength isn't silence, it's standing in the storm and refusing to bend." The baby's cry echoed once more, and Emily whispered, "I will not let that voice be drowned by lies." The courtroom froze, breathless, as the truth cut the air sharper than steel. The courtroom emptied, leaving only echoes of pain and truth behind. Emily stood in the center, her hands trembling as Daniel placed his palm on her shoulder. He whispered, "It's over." Emily shook her head, whispering back, "No, it's only beginning." Mary and Robert shuffled quietly out, their faces heavy with guilt. Emily's eyes followed them, her chest rising with ragged breaths. She said, "They thought silence would define me, but I will define myself." Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "You have more strength than they ever believed." Emily exhaled, whispering, "Strength with scars is still strength." The gavel's echo lingered like thunder that refused to fade. Emily walked into her apartment, silence pressing in on every wall. She glanced at the scattered glasses, the remnants of her old life. She whispered, "This was who I was, but not who I am now." She picked up one glass and placed it firmly in the trash. Daniel sat on the couch, watching her quietly, his eyes softened by respect. He said, "You're letting go." Emily nodded, her voice low but steady. "I'm done living in the wreckage." She stepped toward the window, gazing at the night city glowing with life. She whispered, "Maybe I can still rebuild something new." Daniel replied, "Not maybe, you can." Emily visited the hospital nursery one last time, her footsteps echoing against sterile tiles. She stood over the baby's crib, whispering, "I don't know if I can be what you need." The nurse watched silently from the corner. Emily reached out, her fingers brushing the blanket. "Ah," she whispered, "you didn't ask for this storm, but you've been caught in it too." Tears blurred her vision as she leaned closer, whispering, "If nothing else, you'll know you were seen." The baby shifted softly, letting out a quiet sigh. Emily closed her eyes, whispering, "Maybe being broken doesn't mean I can't try." Emily walked through the park at dusk, wind tugging at her hair. She whispered, "This world is still heavy, but I don't have to carry it the same way." Daniel walked beside her, his expression calm, voice steady. "You've carried more than anyone should, and you're still standing." Emily said, "Maybe scars can be maps, not just wounds." Daniel nodded, whispering, "Maps to where you'll go next." The street lamps flickered on, casting their shadows long and golden. Emily said, "For the first time, I'm not afraid of tomorrow." Emily sat on her childhood porch, the wood creaking beneath her. She whispered, "Everything they tried to bury me under has become my soil to grow from." She looked at the stars, tears glistening in her eyes. Daniel sat beside her, silent, offering quiet strength. Emily said, "Family betrayed me, friends abandoned me, but I am still here." Daniel whispered, "And that is everything." Emily exhaled, whispering, "The scars will stay, but so will the strength I found in surviving them." The night air was cold, but for the first time in years, Emily didn't shiver. Emily walked back into the hospital one last time, her heart pounding with every step. She whispered, "This isn't where I thought my life would end up." The nurse looked at her with quiet understanding, nodding silently. Emily leaned over the crib, staring at the baby, whispering, "I never wanted to be a mother, but maybe you needed me more than I needed freedom." Her voice cracked, tears dripping onto her hands. Daniel stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He said, "You don't have to choose alone." Emily looked back at him, whispering, "But alone is all I've ever known." Emily sat alone in the hospital chapel, light from stained glass windows scattering across her face. She whispered, "God, if you're listening, I don't know how to do this." Her hands shook as she clasped them together. Daniel entered quietly, sitting beside her without speaking. She said, "I've been everyone's mistake, everyone's scapegoat." Daniel whispered, "No, you've been their sacrifice." Emily turned to him, tears filling her eyes, whispering, "Then why does it hurt so much?" Daniel said softly, "Because you loved even when they gave you nothing in return." Her chest rose sharply as she whispered, "Then maybe love will be the only thing I have left to give." Emily stood before her parents' house again, her face pale but determined. Mary opened the door, eyes red from days of tears. Emily said, "I came here not for you but for me." Robert appeared behind her, silent, his face etched with regret. Mary whispered, "We were wrong." Emily's chest heaved as she whispered back, "You took everything from me." Mary said softly, "Can you ever forgive us?" Emily shook her head, whispering, "Forgiveness is not mine to give." Robert muttered, "We only wanted to protect the family." Emily's voice rose, trembling, "And in the process you destroyed it." She turned away, whispering, "This door no longer belongs to me." Emily sat on a park bench at dawn, the sky painted with soft pink and gold. She whispered, "Maybe healing isn't about going back, but going forward." Daniel sat beside her, silent but steady, watching the sunrise with her. Emily said, "I've been buried under lies, but I'm still breathing." Daniel nodded slowly, whispering, "That's survival, that's strength." Emily placed her hands over her chest, whispering, "Even if I never get answers, I'll live with the truth I know now." Daniel said softly, "You'll write your own ending." Emily smiled faintly, whispering, "Then let it be mine, even if it's broken." Emily stood alone in her apartment, holding the baby in her arms for the first time. She whispered, "They tried to make me believe you weren't mine, but maybe you were always meant to be here." Her tears slid onto the child's blanket. Daniel stood at the doorway, silent, his face unreadable, but softened with something close to awe. Emily pressed her cheek against the baby's head, whispering, "I never wanted to be a mother, until you called me Mama." Her voice cracked, but her words lingered like fire. The silence after was heavy, eternal, as if the whole world paused to listen.